of that. My grandmother was the first one to do that. It's all this whole thing. It's all her schus.
Yeah.
It's all comes from her. Yeah,
Oh,
and she had nothing to do with a lot of it, but she was the first one to record the shiur. Okay, so the Gemara starts here in Hamad Beis. Right, so you have to know the halacha first of what you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'av and what you're not. Right, it's not so pashut. So he sounds like he's happy too. Anyway, so the nakuda is that the dvarim haroim you're allowed to learn. So someone put out a list this year of all the stuff that you're allowed to learn. Yeah, some people whenever they learn that sad, it's eichet you know. That's what they say. The Tisha B'av is good for yeshiva bachur because they wear tefillin by mincha and they don't wear shoes and they don't like to learn. Yeah. So the Gemara starts like this. Amr Yechanan Ma'idich Sivs on the bottom of the Amid Ma'idich Siv. What's the pshat on the pasuk? Ashri Adam mefachad tamid maksha liba yipel bara. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. A praiseworthy is a person who's constantly daig. He's constantly afraid.
yeah.
Maksha liba, and a person who hardens his heart, yipel bara, will fall into bad. So what does this mean? So Rashi says that mefachad means that he's daig liris hanaylad. He's afraid of the consequences of what his actions might be.
Right.
So a person who thinks into the future a little bit, yeah. If somebody's reyes hanoila, the person is sees into the future. It doesn't mean he knows exactly what's going to happen, but he knows there's a basic cheshbon of consequences of if I drive my car when I'm drunk, chances are that I could crash into someone else and be not so nice. Right, so what you should do is either make sure you don't drive when you're drunk, or don't drive at all, or don't get drunk at all.
Yeah.
Right, so you'll be able to prevent this. But that's the nakuda of what Rashi says, that he's deigluris hanolish le'tarat hakol b'kachem as a zois. What's the taita of this ma'isa? I'll do this. What's going to happen because of that? Taisus brings a Gemara brachas that says the Perek HaRoya. I'm reading the Gemara says in brachas chazilu gaver dav mafached. So somebody that looks very nervous. He says he's sinning. So those that are in tzion, if they're afraid, they're sinning. So what's the pshat in that? What's the problem with that? The pashtus is that many people, when they're in an uncomfortable situation, when they're away from their baseline, from their regular thing, they get very nervous. It's fear of the unknown. But if you're in Tzion, if you're in the Makom HaMikdash, if you're in Yerushalayim, so why is there Makom to be afraid of the unknown? You're known. It's a matzav of known. It's a matzav of comfort. It's a matzav of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
A person is in a shar matzav. He always goes back to his default setting, right? The Gemara says that Adam Nikir B'Shlosh Dvarim Kisei B'Kaisei B'Kasei. The person goes back to his default situation.
Right.
So he saw him. The Gemara says, and he told him that he's sinning. And the Gemara Brachas asks from the Gemara over here, and over there the Gemara answers that we're talking about Divrei Torah. A person is afraid that he shouldn't forget his learning, and he's constantly going over what he learned. So over there, the Gemara takes this pasuk to mean. The Gemara asks to steer between these two psukim, that Asher Adam mefachad tamid and pachad b'tzion chatoim. So pachad b'tzion chatoim is a person who's stam afraid, but Asher Adam mefachad tamid, he's afraid about. So it doesn't mean he's afraid. He's concerned about what he takes a certain seriousness with the consequences of his actions, and like the Gemara of the Bracha says that a person doesn't chazer. So then the consequence is that he's not going to remember his learning. A person doesn't remember his learning, it's a very terrible thing, as we know from Chazal, that as a loymid v'nechoyzik is a re'ah v'enekoyzer. It's a real Chazal. It's not what your Rebbe told you in first grade. And my Rebbe told me in first grade. That's where I know from. But it actually exists in Chazal.
Example of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's as I said. But the reason why a person has to chazer is because the concept of shikha, the concept of shikha, just to get into this spirit of the Tisha B'av a little bit, that Rabbi Lipyansky Grad said this ma'aseh today, but I heard it before also, that there was a Adam Gadol that after the war he lost his wife and 10 children, and someone came to visit him, and they were talking, and he shows him. He takes out some pictures and he shows him, this is Avremele, this is Maishele, this is the Shleimele, and he's going through all the kids. And when he got to one of the younger kids, he blinked out. And he didn't remember what the kid's name was. And he broke down crying. And he couldn't, Ein Menachem Lo, there was no Nechama. So until a neighbor that also had a similar experience in the war, so he came and he was able to, they cried together and he was Menachem him. But what was the issue over here wasn't so much that, the issue over here was that, Kol's man, that you have a picture of somebody, so there's a zeicha for it, right? But if the picture is not being maskir anything, so then what's the point? You forgot, this is the shikha. Shikha and chayshach is one thing. It's the same ideas, and we notice this is from a lot of places. But the Nakud is he's saying he was saying a fascinating word. He was saying an idea that a maze is typhus mekaymai. That a maze hagam is over, but people still remember him. Right. You put a plaque up, you put a building up. You donate something. You donate a siddur, right? Lili nishmas, whatever. So the maze has some makom for holding, but there's a time and that could happen that a person has no zecher whatsoever. He was saying in the context of the story that the Gemara mentions later, with the people that drowned, that they knew what they were going to do, what the captors were going to do to them, so they jumped into the water. So he's saying that the pshat is that the way water works is that water washes everything away, and it dissolves everything, and there's no zecher of it, there's no kevers, there's no nothing, right? So, and it's interesting because Titus, we'll see later in the Gemara, Titus said that he wants it to burn his ashes and spread it over the seven seas, because that way Hashem won't be able to catch him, so to speak, And he was the one that came up with the taina that said that the only place he could fight with anybody is in the water, because when Mitzrayim is in the water, it's always in the water, right? And the little bug came, and it was as soon as he got into land, the bug came into his nose, right? But he himself had this concept that he's going to go in the water, he's going to be away from Hashem, because the water is so.
I would say it's just the opposite. The water is like Torah, right?
Yeah, but
Torah
there is
like
that. No, 100%.
So Torah is water. It's the water for the nefesh. It's the water that you need.
True, but the problem is that when a person drowns at sea, there's nothing. He's gone. You're never gonna find him. Good luck looking for him. Right.
That's true.
This mindset just happened a couple of weeks ago.
Same goes with the yid that goes into the Medrash,
Yeah, he also was never to be seen again.
It's the same thing.
Right, but there's an akuda. That's the point of what he was saying. This is why we're talking about this. I don't even know. But anyways, so he's dayik shleishkach tamud evechayzam shnase tamid. Mahachanami ma'isi le'ahani uvdi. And over here we're bringing this pasuk about the stories in the Gemara. Shabartchal rev tuvasam. They relied on their wealth that they had and the good things that they had. Shavasam levayish bar kamsa. They said, people always say, I davened so good today, so Rav I did yesterday. Hashem will take care of. Hashem will give me, Hashem will give it to me this time, right? So they were boiteach hariv tuvasam. They relied on all the good that they did v'shalvasam, and they were living b'shalva. The problem is that in Olam Hazeh, when a person is b'shalva, it usually takes away from his Olam Haba. And we notice because by Yaakov Avinu it says, Bikish Yaakov leisha b'shalva kavas lebrug d'shel Yosef, and that's where everything fell apart. It was that moment when Yaakov didn't sit b'shalva. He was bikish leisha b'shalva. He didn't even get it. He was about to sit down, relax, and he's going to retire, and life is going to be good now. He's going to sit and learn. All of a sudden, kavas lebrug d'shel Yosef. What does it mean, rug d'shel Yosef? That's when the brothers started shepherding Yosef. That's when they went down to Mitzrayim. That's when the Shibud Mitzrayim came about. That's where everything fell apart because of Mechiras Yosef, right? There's a bunch of different stories that happened, a bunch of chatam that happened, that everything goes back to, everything's mushrish in Chatam and Rishon. Things are mushrish in Mechiras Yosef. The Asurge Malchus are mushrish in Mechiras Yosef. There's a big word that we'll say maybe later about it, but for now, Al Kapana, they're B'teich, B'rev Suvam, V'shavosam, Levayish Bakamsa, V'lamed Al Bas Kesar. They had a certain confidence that nothing bad was able to happen to them. And they should have been afraid that their actions could have consequences. We're not talking about over here a person that's afraid for nothing. A person just has anxiety, which could happen. That a man could just get anxiety, and it's not necessarily because of anything. But over here we're not talking about anxiety. Taisa is saying over here, Taisa says that there's a certain concern and a seriousness that a person has to display in terms of his consequences of his actions. Because look, they said, well, what's the difference? Let's beat up these Roman soldiers. Yeah, what happens when you beat up the Roman soldiers? Who knows how many thousands of Jews got killed because of that? So it's not wise, So that's the concept over here. But Bechlal, these people were saying that they're both brave too. Everything is good. That there's no. They were saying the exact opposite of what the pasuk was saying. They were saying, I don't have to worry about the consequence of my actions. It's going to be good. So there is a kind of talking where it's going to be good, and you're right, it's going to be good because you are good. So then things will be good. But when you do bad things and then say, "Oh, don't worry, it's going to turn out being good," right?
That's the opposite of good.
You're like the Ganav that's always saying that he's never going to get caught, and then he finally gets caught.
Right.
And then what? But and his friend tells him, "Listen, I thought you were, you lied to me. You said it's going to be good. It's not good. You got caught, right?" So that's the issue. So Rashi says in Mishlei on this pasuk that the person is doig me'onish. He's afraid to get punished from his sins, so he doesn't do averus. So in a sense, there's different madrigas of your shemayim. There's your shemayim. There's your schet. There's your zainish. Your zainish means you're afraid to get punished. You don't want to get those boo-boos. You don't want to go to Gehenna, which is fine. It's a madriga. Yeah? Your schet means you don't want to make it. You don't want to do it because your schet means that you're afraid to do the sin because that's what Hashem said you can't do. Your zainish means you're afraid of the punishment, which is the basic level to start with. Your zainish is the lowest.
And then comes your sechet, and then your shemayim.
Yeah.
Your shemayim is going to make you not even have to think about doing a chet.
That's right.
You're scared of Hashem.
Yeah. So this is how the Gemara introduces the story of Kamsa bar Kamsa. There's a fascinating thought. That if someone were to ask you on September 10, 2001, you see the Twin Towers over there, you think they could come down? Somebody, I'm nuts. These things, this is the symbol of the free world. This is the picture of the skyline of New York. What are you talking about? Kids, a few hours later, the planes crash into it, and it's all over, right? So Chazal say a very interesting thing. Chazal say that when the Goyim came to the Beis HaMikdash, they saw that the Kruvim were Me'urim Zebazah. Because the Gemara says that when Klal Yisrael is Osim Ritzein Shemakom, so the Kruvim are facing each other. And when Klal Yisrael is Enem Osim Ritzein Shemakom, the Kruvim are not facing each other. So the question is, how come in the Goyim, as the Gemara Yuma, Dafnun Dalet, when the Goyim came into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, they saw that the Kruvim were Me'urim Zebazah. So in many Tzritzim said. But there's a Reb Tzadok that explains it like this. That the pshat is that the Nevi'im were shrieing at them, the Chachamim were shrieing at them, everyone was laughing at them, everyone's telling them, it's fine, it's okay, you're allowed to talk during davening, you're allowed to have a cell phone, you're allowed to have a shaitel, there's nothing wrong with it, and they were saying fakir, they're saying, it's the rabbis, they're the ones that have the sinner, right? Yeah, Vadim. So the pshat is that, if you would have told them that the Beis HaMikdash, they were preaching that the Beis HaMikdash was going to get destroyed. You really think that the Beis HaMikdash was going to get destroyed? Nah, empty threats or whatever. No one took them that serious to the point of where when it actually started happening, that they actually had to that they actually think about it. Right. But what happened? The Goyim laid siege around Yerushalayim, and then they came into Yerushalayim, and then they started killing people, and then they came to the Beis HaMikdash, and they're like, "What's happening? This wasn't supposed to happen." Mm-hmm. It's almost like a prank that went wrong, and they come into the Beis HaMikdash and they start destroying the Beis HaMikdash, and then it hits them, and they said, "Oh my gosh, everything that the Navi said is true and it's happening. Like, maybe we should have listened, right?" Yeah. But maybe we should have listened. You woke up only a little bit too late. It was Kvar Nechtam HaGzeira that the Beis HaMikdash had to get destroyed. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show that their tshuva was taka something. So in the Pnimius Hadvarim, the Kruvim were Me'urim Zebazah. Because in the world of tshuva is very pnimius de gezach. Tshuva doesn't mean I won't do it again. That's not what tshuva means. Tshuva means that I have to go back. I have to go back home. I have to go visit I have to go back to my father. I didn't see him 50 years. Right. That's what tshuva means. So the pshat is that they were doing all kinds of things. The Gemara has a list and a list of things like Harv Yishalayim El Mipnei this, like Harv Yishalayim El Mipnei that. First base of Mikdash, second base of Mikdash, all kinds of things with Alazaitan, all kinds of Chatam, all kinds of things. But Lamaisa, once the Churban actually started and when they saw the thing really, really actually happening, they got very afraid, and then they started doing tshuva, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show them that the tshuva was going to be working. So that's why the crew of Urim Zebazah. Yeah, I actually called my friend yesterday to see, but he didn't call me back. Where the one who told me this word.
Yeah.
All right. He said he didn't tell me what happened. He didn't tell me what the word is. Okay.
Alrighty.
So Akamsa by Kamsa Chav Yerushalayim. The first story is Kamsa by Kamsa was the name of two people. Yeah. And Yerushalayim was destroyed because of that story. And Atarna Goyla Atarna Gol to Chorv Tor Malka. Tor Malka's Har Melech got destroyed because of a chicken and a rooster. Asaka just by Chorv Beitar from the side of a wagon. Okay. Beitar was destroyed. And the Gemara is going to go through. It's referring to a story where there was a story where the wagon broke, and they made a whole situation. We'll see. Rashi says, "Doifen shel makeves noshim, shekoyin rituga b'lashon Ashkenaz v'kein agola, damrin b'is v'espenikim azli kud naisa b'rispek." So it was a side of a wagon that broke. Yeah. Let's take a look at the Gemara. But that's what caused Beitzah to get destroyed. Okay. So the Gemara is going to go into. So there's three stories and there's three cities that we're talking about here. So the Pashtus is that the concept is that Yerushalayim is the holy city. I mean, there's not to talk about. Right. And actually, a Chazal, the Baal Turim brings it that there's 70 names to Yerushalayim, and it's fascinating. That one city should have 70 names. But the pshat is that it's a city where every yid has to have a shaykhs to what the concept is Yerushalayim. And we spoke many times lately that it says. There's Yerushalmi that says that a person who's, we know that when the minim started making problems, so they were masakin the brach of Lamal Shinim in Shemini Esrei, and if a person didn't save Lamal Shinim, then they would throw him out. If a person didn't save Yerushalayim Ircha, Zok Yerushalmi, they would throw him out also, because there was a big belief at that time that maybe it was because of the Rev HaTzaros. And maybe because the tzaras came about because the people were leaving the fold and they were going to other beliefs. But by the goyim, Yerushalayim not a holy city, so there's nothing. So they left it, But you're forsaking something that's so vital and so important to Yiddishkeit to say that what I need Yerushalayim for, what I need a Beis Hamikdash for, what do I need Kahanim for? So then, Hashem took that away. So somebody just kafir in Tchias HaMesim. Yeah, you have a kusi. The Gemara talks about kusim, right? Kusim, there were people that they got scared off they were doing Avodah Zarah, and they got a heichocha from the lions came to them, and they, so many of them were Megayers, so it was Machlekes Tanam, but they Geri Emes or Geri Arayas. But Lamaisa, later on, they found that they were being oived on Har Grizim, and the pshat is that they believed that Har Grizim was spared from the Mabul because it was there was certain holiness to it. And they made a whole Avodah Zarah station over there on the Har Grizim. Yeah. And it could be there's still like a small sect of people that still does this area.
People don't believe in anything these days.
Yeah, no, but this is a Shein Alta belief. This is going back to the times of the Gemara. And the pshat is that these people, so when a person who's a kusi who wants to become a yid, so you have to verify two things. You have to verify that they believe in Yerushalayim. You also have to verify that they believe in Tchias HaMesim. And the two things are very much Mekushas Elazeh, the concept of Tchias HaMesim, the concept of Yerushalayim. Besides the fact that, the Pashtus is that that's where Tchias HaMesim is going to start from. But there's also an akudah that if you believe in one, then you automatically believe in the other. I mean, you can't have Eretz Yisrael without Tchias HaMesim. It's that Lim Zeb Zamamish. It's a Gemara Chelik, but hopefully we'll talk about it a different time. Anyway, so that's that. So what was the Maisa? So, I have to have my papers here, otherwise I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so Kamsa by Kamsa Chav Yerushalayim. So you have the story of Kamsa by Kamsa, that's where Yerushalayim got destroyed. why is he called Kamsa? So Sefer Avort from this Rabbi Hamlik that I heard him say last night, and I heard this many years.
Yeah.
And Kamsa is Lashon of a Kaimetz. A Kaimetz is you separate from the Mincha. Well, Kamsa is somebody who's stingy, but we can get to it in a second. But the point is that Kaimetz is separate. Klal Yisrael needs to be together. Yerushalayim is 70 names because it gathers everyone and everybody together. And the pshat is that if we hear this person had a ma'asav, a shrakal ch'ma'asav lashon haras in a schinim, whatever it was, and he was a kaimitz. He separated. He was, the Rambam says that one of the people that in speaking be'od elas is tshuva, is a person who's perished from that tzibur. A person who's perished from that tzibur, is not mitzad b'tanisam, is not mitzar b'sarosam. So he's speaking be'od elas is tshuva. Well, because he thinks he's better than everybody else, whatever the reason is.
Right.
But the point is very stark that a person who can't, you have to go together with everybody else. Fakir, the Netziv and Mekdover and like Dama Tebrachis, he writes that it's kedai to see it inside. I don't know if we have one here, but the pshat is he writes very sharply over there about the people that had sinned towards others that were different from them. This one with this kind of hat, this one with that kind of yarmulke. At the end of the day. At the end of the day, when you come up there, does Hashem ask you, what kind of hat you wear, right? So he says that's what brought about the Churban. And it's interesting because I think the older people get sometimes they come to this realization that it doesn't really matter, and sometimes they get. Some people are just stuck in it, and like they're very, they're not willing to see somebody, they're not willing to talk to somebody that, chas v'shalom, doesn't wear a big black yarmulke. He's a shagitz, Right. It's the worst stuff here in the world to wear a different type of yarmulke.
Doesn't wear yarmulke
as my great grandfather one time said that Hashem doesn't wear a hat, so I neither. It was very funny. He came to Yeshiva for Mincha once and he didn't have a hat. So I asked him if he wants one. He says no. He said, why do I have to wear one? That's what he said. When you're 100 years old, also I don't know if you have to be magba and everything.
Right.
Anyways. That was the. I think he was around 100 years old when that story happened.
Okay.
Fine. So what's the story here? So the story is like this: Akamsa b'kamsa chav Yerushalayim. Kamsa caused Yerushalayim to get destroyed. The hu gaver the rachme kamsa ubal debavid bar kamsa. So there were two guys. There was one guy named Kamsa, and there was another guy named Bar Kamsa. Problem was that there was a guy, we don't know his name. His friend's name was Kamsa, and his enemy's name was Bar Kamsa. Oh, so I started telling you the word about the Kaimitz. Yes, let's go back to the word about the Kaimitz for a second. So this is where Moshe Hamnik always said over the story with Rabbi Tzin Yadler, who was the Maggid of Yerushalayim, who was very old already, and he was so old, and he was blind, he already had institutions named after him, and he would come out once a year on Tisha B'Av, and he would darshan, and the men would stay on one side, and the ladies would stay on the other side, and he said the following. He said that a kaimetz is something that you separate from the mincha. He says, it's one thing if you have a person who's, where does it come from? That a guy who grows up in a from home, with the most gefallen with a cup to be Mechal Shabbos, where does that come from? So he said, that's not how it works. It's a very gradual process. He said, the Zayda, he's the closest door by Chatzos Erev Shabbos. The father, he closed his door, a few hours later. The son, a few hours later. And then the grandson, by this man. And then the great-grandson, he doesn't even mind keeping his door. Each one choose off a little bit more. So that's Kamsa, and that's Bar Kamsa. Because there was the Kamsa that he took off a little bit, and Bar Kamsa, the son, took off a little more from that until you were left with nothing. That's a shame of art. That's what he says from Rabbi Tzin Yadler.
So he didn't like the Bar Kamsa because that was already too much.
That was already too far. It's interesting because the Marsha Taka learns that it was Avu B'noi, that it was a father and a son. It could make sense like that. And it's a question. The Mefarshim here are very busy with where they, Okay, so who gathered the Rachme Kamsa, Ubal the Bar Kamsa? So you had a guy who was friends with Kamsa, and he was the enemy with the Bar Kamsa. Yeah? So Avad Sudasa, he made a Suda. So Amalei L'Shamei, he tells his Misharis, Zil Aisi L'Kamsa, go bring me Kamsa, invite him to the Suda. Ozal Aisi L'Bar Kamsa, he brings the wrong guy. Yeah? Ashtrikl flopped this guy. Yeah? He didn't get the memo. So he brings him Bar Kamsa, his enemy. So also Ashkechei Dav Yosef. Said the Baal Hasuda, the Balabas, we don't know his name. So he came to Bar Kamsa and he was sitting there. Amalek, Michti, who gaver Baldavavada, who gaver who? You're my enemy. Why do you come here? What are you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
So he says, my boy, what are you doing here? Kumpuk, get out of here. Omalei, Hoyavasoi, Shavkan. I'm here already, let me stay. I don't know if this is the pshat is that he was chappering him or he was serious over here, but he says, what are you doing? Look, a guy makes a chasana. There's 500 people by the wedding. Yeah. The 501st piece of kugel, it's not on his mind. He's not worried about that. Right? Another person that comes into the simcha, it's not going to stir him. You invited him. You didn't invite him. You want him to be there. You don't want him to be there. Yeah, what do you care? There's so many people here. What's the difference? Right? So this is where you have to look at a little bit over here. Obviously, this guy stirred him so much that he was willing to say, that 501st piece of kugel, that's going to stir me. There's so many pieces of kugel here. What's the difference? Yeah, right. So he says, leave me alone. He says, I'll pay you. He says, once I'm here, Shavkan, let me stay here. And I'll pay for what I have. So this is the top of Nunvav Amar Aleph. He says, no, you can't stay. He says, I'll pay for half the Suda. He says, no. I'll pay for the whole Suda. He says, you can't. He grabbed him by the hand. He picked him up and threw it out. Omar, so Bakamta said, since the Rabbanon are sitting there, and they weren't meicha in this thing that they threw me out, so they didn't mind it. Right? I said a new pshat last night. It's not a real pshat, obviously. But I said, why Taka didn't Rabbanon notice? Why weren't they meicha? It's because certain people they feel very entitled to the podium when they come to simcha. They didn't notice what was going on. It's a joke. Yeah. So Shema Mina Kanechel. So Ezel Echel Bekurtz Bemalka. So he says, I'm going to tattle to the king on him. Yeah. So now this guy's a moise. Yeah. A moise, you got to get rid of him right away. You don't let him stick around. Once the guy starts making problems, you got to get rid of him altogether. So Ozal Omar Leila Kesa, he tells the king, the Jews are rebelling against you. Omar Leila says, who says? Or like the king, it was an interesting conversation because, if you're going to the Roman king and you're telling him that the Jews are rebelling against you, yeah, for sure, Yeah. He says, "Mi Yemer." How do you know? Who says? Mechatesi. What was the mechatesi over here? He wanted him to get him to talk, probably. How am I going to know? So Amalei Shadlu Karbona, send them a carbon. Chazasim a carbon, let's see if they're going to bring it. So Azal Shadu the Egla Tilsa. So he sent them an Egla. Now, I didn't see too many people talking about this, but chances are he wanted to remind them about the Egel.
Okay.
And not only that, but the Gemara says that there's a Gemara later that says that Unkelis wanted to become a ger, and he was asking all different people that were dead already. He was able to communicate with the dead, and he communicated with them, and he asked them, should he, attach himself to the Jewish people, connect to the Jewish people. And the answer was don't even bother anything with them. Don't have any shaykhs to them at all. So why not? What do they care? What do you care to have a shaykhs to the Jews? What's so bad about the Jews? Besides the fact that we own all the banks and we control the weather and everything else about that, but what's so bad? After all, what's so bad? Right? The pshat is because there's a Gemara that says, it's a Gemara Baba Kama. Let's see if we could see it inside over here. If there's a Baba Kama on hand, we'll go to it inside. If not. Let's see. Oh, right here. Here we go. The Gemara says as follows. Here is it. Here, right here. So Allah is as follows. Shor shel Yisrael, shenogach shor shel Knani potter.
Yeah.
The shore of a Yid that gores a shore of a non-Jew is potter. So the Gemara tries to figure it out a little bit, and the Gemara says, Omar Babo, Omar Kral, Omar v'yamoided eretz, Rav yater goyim, Rav shav mitzvah kibulim minech, Kem shleikaimu, Omar v'hitim amayim l'Yisrael, Rabbi Yechon Omar mehacha, if you mehar paron. What's this whole story over here? The Gemara goes through the story of when mentions that Akash Baruch Hu went around to the Umas to ask them, if they want to be Makabal the Torah, and as I weiter. Where is it? Tan Rabbanon, here we are. Ukvar sholcho malchus remi shnei sar diyutei zetel chachmei Yisrael limdunu teraschem. He says that the Malchus Remi sent 2 soldiers to the Chachmei Yisrael to teach them the Torah. Karu v'shonu v'shulshu. They learned everything. B'shas p'tirason, when they were leaving Amr Lahem, they said to them, Diktakna b'chol teraschem emesu. So the entire Torah is true. Chutz midover zeh. Shata maimrim. Besides this halacha that you say, Sher shal Yisrael, shenogach sher shal Kanani, pater shal Kanani, shenogach shal Yisrael, ben tam b'mur, b'shalom nezik shalei. So meman pshach. Irei eyu dafka, I feel the Kanani kinogach Yisrael. So Irei eyu dafka, I feel the Kanani. So kinogach Yisrael lived there. Virei eyu lav dafka, I feel the Yisrael kinogach the Kanani l'chayv. B'davar zeh ein anu meidim ma'aseh l'malchus.
This is something we'll not tell them?
Right.
Why not?
Because if you're going to tell them, right, they're going to have a problem with this.
That's so right. That's something the Goyim don't have a problem.
These specific Goyim.
Because they knew it, right? So all you have to do is you have to teach it. You have to have the Goyim know it. Everybody has to know the Torah. Torah is a way of life, right?
Right. But that's the issue. The Gemara mentions that should the Goyim be learning the Torah, should it not? It's part of the sugya there.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's not, but the Nakuda is that there's
the intellectual Goyim. Not the Goyim that carry garbage, and the Goyim that I'm saying the ones that sit in there, ones with quantum physics and all that. They're the ones that do. They would learn Torah. They would agree, right? Pashtus.
It's shaykh. The problem is that many of them are very, very. So it's interesting. Around the time, and this is more of a historical thing. There was a point in history where all the Chachamim, the non-Jewish Chachamim, they don't believe in anything.
Even now,
yeah. And the Nakuda was that it has to be, when you write a scientific paper, when you write a professional paper, you have to bring rayas to back yourself up.
Right.
If you can't bring rayas to back yourself up, the whole thing doesn't matter. How do you know the story of Kamsa happen? Right. Back it up, bring me a raya, bring me scientific proof, and a raya. So the thing was like this, that at that point in history, used to be that someone would say a story. So he said a story, you either chose to believe it or not. But now, after there was a certain point in a certain break in history, that anything needed to be backed up with rayas, history, science, everything. So they didn't believe in any religions.
Right, but Jewish history is different because Jewish history is all bound together with Torah. Torah and history are the same thing.
Right? 100%.
So if you're gonna learn it as a history book, then you might not like what it says. But if you're gonna learn it as a manual,
right? Then there's a lot more context. And it's a lot easier to make sense out of it. 100%. So the reason why, even without knowing the specific reason, but that's why they sent the Egel, because the Gemara says really that every time that the Yidden are chaytes, Hakadosh Baruch Hu's maskedem. Hakadosh Baruch Hu's maskedem the Chet Egel again. The Chet Egel is one of the things that that keeps on coming up again. That's interesting. Well, because Yeravam ben Avat, part of his issues were that he made a Gleithov also. So the Gemara talks about it. Maybe we'll see inside soon. I want to just go through the Gemara quickly, and then we'll go back and we'll talk a few points. Right. So, Shadlu Korbana, he says, send them a carbon, Chazim a carbon, let's see if they can be marked with the carbon. Ozal Shadlu B'yoda Igla Tilsa. The Shadlu with Tilsa means Rashi, Teisves, basically means a good quality calf, very soft, tender meat, good. So Bahadi the Ka'azi Shadlu Me'mum, while they were traveling to Yerushalayim, he placed the mum in the animal, B'nivs Fasayim. In the lips, or in the eye. So daikin shaba'ayin is interesting kind of mum, because a daikin shaba'ayin, if you know what it is, it's a growth in the eye. So you can't place a growth in the eye. So the Rashba, someone asked the Rashba what this means. The Rashba has a whole tshuva to him, answering what this means. The Rashba holds it better not to change the gears to the Gemara, and they keep it as daikin shaba'ayin, but maybe it means something else. Not that kind of mum, but it would be something else. So duchtel dildi dan have a mumma. that for a yid to be makriv this carbon on the mizbeach is a mum, ul the two lav mumahu. If they want to be makriv on their bummas, so it's not a mum. So savar rabbanon lekruvay mishum shlem malchus. So rabbanon said, listen, we know this guy's up to no good. This Bar Kamsa fellow, he had his run-in with the other popular guy, and it's not going to end well. So savar rabbanon lekruvay mishum shlem malchus. So the rabbanon said that we should be makriv because of shlem malchus. So the question is, if this is a lav, how could you do a lav just to be derech shlem malchus? Now, the pshat is like this: that again, what's the consequence of this action? It's true that right now it's a lav, but if, let's say the king is going to come, send his army onto Yerushalayim and kill everybody out because he weren't makriv his carbon, right? When you're dealing with kings, when you're dealing with malchus, it's not so simple, right? There are shittas in achreinim for sure that hold that to be over on a loisa say malchus, it's mutter, you know, and especially if it's going to be a question of pikuach nefesh.
Yeah.
So Amalu Reb Zechai ben of Kula says Yomer Bal Mumen Kraven L'Gav Mizbeach. People are going to start bringing Mumen on the Mizbeach because they're going to say, oh well, listen, well you were makriv Mumen on the Mizbeach, so Sovel L'Mikdalei. So then they said, well, why don't we just kill Bar Kamsa and then we'll be done with all the problems, you know? Mm-hmm. This guy's going to make issues for the Jews to no end. So we'll arrange it. He'll get hit by a garbage truck on his way home from shul tonight. You know, like we could work out such a deal. So he shouldn't go out and tell everybody. Right. So Amalu, he said to them, Reb Zechariah said to them, no, so people are going to say that 1 second that we killed him because he made a mum and kachim, and we killed him. So you don't kill somebody for making a mum and kachim, of course not. All right. So Amr B'Yechanan sagt B'Yechanan an was nu se shob Zechariah ben Avkulas hechrives beisenu v'sorfes hecholenu v'glisonu me'artzenu. So the anivus of Reb Zechariah ben Avkulas caused the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and the burning of the Heichal and sent us in Golus from our land. So the question is, he was the Gadol Adar. So what's the time on him over here? What's exactly the issue? Yeah. Why are we pointing to his anivus per se? Anivus is usually a good midah, right? The pashtus is, and that every midah, if you look at the Rambam at the beginning of Hilchos Deis, it's very clear there that the Rambam doesn't specify good midas and bad midas. He just says that each midah you need to have the midah, you need to have the right measure of it, right? So there's certain midah that you know exactly what you want, and you're not afraid of people, and you're not, you don't care to stand up to the world. Right. So he says, Yomer Bali Moment Craven. They're going to say that Bali Moment Craven. And therefore what? So they'll say that. So very good. And if they try to bring a Bali Moment on the Mizbeach, right? So the Kehanim will explain to them that we can't bring a Moment on the Mizbeach, and the reason why we brought that mum on the Mizbeach is because it was for the king. Oh, so you'll say now that what's the issue? Because, then the king is going to find out that there was a mum on his carbon. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the story may get back to the king. Okay. But why are we concerned about what other people are going to say? Why are we concerned about it? Yomru bali mum and krevel gav Mizbeach. Yomru matum kachmi harik. That's one shot. And what's the story of Reb Zechariah ben Avkulas? What's very fascinating is that the Medrash Eicha, when it brings the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, he says, you know who's the one that was by the party or wasn't Moicha? It was this Reb Zechariah ben Avkulas. Oh. So he knew exactly what was going on. He should have got up and he should have, maybe stopped him from making his issues with Bar Kamsa. Or maybe he should have told Bar Kamsa, or maybe he should have tried helping him be Matthias Bar Kamsa.
Maybe he should have just done it.
So it's interesting that because a lot of times, loy eis tefillah. Not sometimes you gotta do something.
But sometimes that's something that you do for that time would be tefillah. No.
This needed a much more practical strategy, I think.
If he understands that something bad is about to happen, right?
Yeah, but I think...
What could he do? He could either step up and decide, if he has an idea right away, which is not typical. He has an idea right away on the spot how to take care of it, then go ahead and do it. But otherwise, I think the proper thing would be for him just to daven. Or to chap. Maybe he didn't chap. right?
So that's what I'm.
Put him in,
That's what I think the Gemara is trying to point out. Why the Gemara started off with the pasuk of Ashray mefachad Tamid. A person who's always looking at what's the consequence of my action going to be. Meaning, look, let's take a classic yeshiva bacher case for example. Right, a guy says, "Listen, I'm going to learn about some other rabbi all night." Right. Fine, call it knock yourself out. Nobody has a problem with that. And you're learning; it's going to be the highest metric of learning possible. You're going to go straight to Gan Eden for it, right? Tomorrow, you're not going to make some Krishma, you're not going to daven a minyan, and you're not going to learn Jack tomorrow, right?
Let's say.
So, and you're going to be grumpy. You're not going to be able to be around people, and you're not going to be able to be a mensch, right? So is it kedai or is it not kedai? So maybe it's a better idea to go to sleep at a normal time, wake up at a normal time, feel rested. Some people have this mishigas, myself included, that we don't like learning when other people are learning. We do the opposite of what everybody else does, Yeah. When I was a kid, when we would go to Shofi Yantef a lot, so, till by the time, we settled into the schedule because of the jet lag and everything, it's already time to go back. And Baruch Hashem, that's why we stopped doing it. It's been a while. But and I was 2 years old, 3 years old. My zog was, my slogan of the trips was up in the night and sleep in the day. Yeah. And I think it was worse because I think it was up all day, all night, right? So no sleep at all. Right. Yeah. So you have to chop what the consequences are going to be, right? So you can't stay up all night because then the next day you're going to be fashlufen. You can't eat like a horse by a kiddush because then you're not going to be able to eat your wife's chalent or whatever. Whether you're a man, whether you're a bacher, there's always some kind of consequence that you're not good at. You have to think through. Right. So I think that's a big chisaron here in what the Gemara is pointing out. So let's go back to the Medrash Eiches. If the Medrash Eiches is saying that the Zechar ben of Kulas was by that Suda, so Shmami no Kanechaluhu, it makes things a lot worse for him now. Then because he's the guy that has to make sure everything's looking good in the base of Mikdash. Yoimru, people are going to say, Balamum Kemal Gav Mizbech. He's going to be the one he's the one that says, Yoimru, Matlum Bakachim Yaharik. He's the one that says it doesn't look nice, Pasnish, it's nicht as good. All right. And here's where things get really interesting. There's a Tosefta that they bring. It's in Shabbos, Perkei Zayin. It says Machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about clearing the table on Shabbos by the Suda. Yeah. Okay. And you probably never heard this. It's a very interesting Torah, and it says like this: Zechar ben of Kulas, he wasn't not like Beis Hillel and not like Beis Shammai. Rabbi Yosi, Zechar ben of Kulas destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. And it's like so bizarre because it has no shaykhs to the sugya. What's it got to do with the sugya? Right. So let's see it inside. It's Perik Yud Zayin, I believe, in the Tosefta. Maybe we should learn Tosefta together also one day. Yeah. Beis Hillel Oimrim. Yeah. Brisa Dalet. Beis Hillel Oimrim Makbiyin me'al shulchan atamis uklipin. You're allowed to clear off the shells and the bones after the meal. Beis Shammai say Masalik as a tabla kula manara. Beis Shammai say you can't take off the shells and the peels. You could pick up the table, the tabletop, and shake off all the stuff. Zechariah ben Avkilus loy hayaneg loike the Beis Shammai v'loike the Beis Hillel and noitel u'mashlach l'achar amita. He would take it and throw it behind the bed. Rabbi Yosi and Rasnusa shob Zechariah ben Avkilus surface hahechel. What does this got to do anything? Right. So, Bapashas, it sounds like we're just pointing fingers. He's the one that was like this. So he's the one that was like. So he was the one that caused he was that one that they had the issue with him later also. Yeah, kamavur, like it says here, kamavur. Begitten dafnun hebuv de kamsa by kamsa. But I think that is. I saw people say that people learn like this, that the pshat is. There's a Beis Shammai here. There's a Beis Hillel here. Stell sich so a bissel to them. Don't make up your own thing. You got to decide. You got to make a decision. I say it all the time. I'd much rather make a bad decision than to walk around with a suffix in my head the whole day.
That's true.
A chap of mine told me that Chaim Shulevitz says Hazapar, then it makes sense.
But sometimes you can't make a decision, no? They're both good or they're both bad.
Right.
Sometimes, let's
so
give him credit that they were both good, right? He liked Beis Shammai and he liked Beis Hillel. What's he supposed to do?
Right. So there's a good question. But many, many times, the reason why we should be shaykel one side over the other side is very much because we have to look into the consequences of the teitzai and the teitzais of what's going to happen of each decision. right? The whatever. Anyway, so it's just very interesting that over there we're talking about something, a shaila about cleaning off a table.
Right.
What's cleaning off a table got to do with anything? So my, in my mind, I just started going through all different places,
Yeah.
and the Gemara says halashon and brachas and Av Gimel. Oila bonim shagolu me'al shulchan avihim. The Gemara's talking about that because Baruch Hu's mitzar, and cries a lot over the Churban Beis Hamikdash. And the lashon that the Gemara uses over there is oila bonim shagolu me'al shulchan avihim. Woe to the father that the sons got chased away from his table.
Right.
Why shulchan avihim? He's talking about cleaning off the table here also.
Right.
As a chaber of Kulas, the Machlekes of Sham Evis Hill. There's some. You think there's something here? There's something here. What happens is, as I also, they came to this party over here, and he wanted to remove him from the party. This is another Gemara. Maybe this is where it's at. Samach Amud Beis in Bava Basra. It's a Gemara like this.
We're going all over the place.
Tanu Rabbanon. Kshachar Beis Hamikdash, Kshachar Vabayis B'Shniya, Rabbi Prushim B'Yisrael. There was a lot of precious that people wanted to, be menea from Shlei Lechel Basar, Shlei Lishtes Yayin. Nitvalem Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua met up with them. Omer Lem, he said, B'nei Mayatam Echel Basar, why not eating meat? Why not drinking wine? Says we're going to be eating meat from, instead of the carbonas. Nishte yain shemenachs gabe mizbeach v'achshav bottle. Amar lahem, he said to them, Im ken lechem lo noichal, shakvar bottle menachas. So he's saying that you shouldn't eat bread either because they were menachas. Efshir beperis. So he said maybe you should eat peris. Says peris you can't either eat. Shekvar bottle bikurim, because there's kvar bottle bikurim. You can't bring bikurim.
Right.
Yeah, and this is worse than vegans, but Efshir beperis acherim, maybe with other fruits. So ma'im lo nishta shekvar bottle nesuchamayim, or you shouldn't drink water because nesuchamayim. Yeah. So Shoska, they were quiet. Amalhem b'ni boyu, come with me. V'amar lachem shlei l'zabel kol liquor. Don't be misabel at all. I efshir shekvar nigzur gzeira. It says, but what do you mean? Do not be misabel. It was ready. Kvar nigzur gzeira. We have to be misabel.
Right.
So l'sabel yosi midai efshir. But to be misabel to such an extent is efshir. She'en koyrim gzeira al tzibur and l'kenevet to be chayil lamed by. Not going to make a gzeira in the tzibur unless the tzibur is able to stand by t'chsiv. It has to be something that the goy kulai has to be able to accept. Person who's plastering his house has to leave over a davar muat. You could do everything just minus a little bit. Tanya Omer Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha miyem shechor beis hamikdash dinu shenigzra al atzmenu shlei lachal basar v'lo l'shtos yayin el gezring zera latzibur el ein gezring zera latzibur l'kein revi tzibur chalam b'bay miyem shepashta malchus rishasha gezeres len gezeres rois v'kashis v'atals menu Torah u'mitzvus ein manachas ason l'konis l'shua ben v'amid leili Yeshua ben dinu shenigzra al atzmenu shlei l'yisrael ban ben zera shel v'aminu kolum elov. Technically speaking, we should be misabel, right?
Yeah.
And the guy goes on them not to do bris milah. Technically speaking, we should have all these xeris that we shouldn't shalei lachal basar shalei l'shtos yayin, but hanach lam l'Yisrael that's mutar sheyu sheigigin value mesiden. Sheigigin means what? I mean, really, we shouldn't be getting married because, we were supposed to be in Avelis.
Yeah.
So, so we're not geyser because, if you would make such a xer that no one's allowed to get married,
right.
It's just very reminiscent of what the Gemara Saita says, right? That Miriam told Amram and Yocheved that your xer is worse than Parah because Parah was geyser on the schorm, your geyser on everybody because you got divorced, so they got married again. Right? So whenever whenever there's a golus, whenever there's a tzara, we have to look at Chazal. We have to look at we have to turn to Chazal and see how Chazal dealt with it.
Right.
Sometimes we have to do this, and sometimes you have to do that. It's not always so simple.
And sometimes you have to just daven. No.
So the thing is
I'm
like
very
this.
Into that. I'm very into this.
So you're right. You're not wrong about it, but when we're dealing with the churban, you're supposed to be misabel.
Right. That's a new level.
So that's something else. Tefillah is al kol tzara shaloi tavai. That's a tzara should go away.
Right.
Not that tefillah is not that tefillah goes against avelus, but the ikar of avelus is to be misbainin on the loss.
Right.
So what we should be davening for now on Tisha B'Av is to be davening for the things that we lost, that we should get them back, or that we should be able to. How could we exist without these things?
Right.
It's interesting because he says that the Gemara here said that we shouldn't even eat fruit because of bikurim. So we mentioned yesterday that the Medrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when Klal Yisrael can't bring bikurim, what are they going to do?
Right.
So the answer was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered him that they're going to daven to me 3 times a day, and it's going to be ki'ilu their makar bikurim. So bikurim pshat is sakaras hatoiv.
Right.
And the way we express our cars hatoiv, even though we don't have Beis Hamikdash that we could bring the fruits to, but we could at least daven and give shach v'dat HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the things, right? Now, if you look in the kinnis, it says Anta Amarta Heitiv Eitiv. I don't know if it was like the 17th or 18th kinna.
Yeah.
And and then L'chashem Atzdaka, that one.
Yeah.
So on the surface, it sounds like we're coming with tightness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You said that you were going to do good things for us, and you didn't. That's not what we're saying. We're saying is that you said that we would get rewarded had we been noyig properly,
Right.
and now that we weren't, we realize, it's almost like it's almost like a confession. We realize that we messed up. We realize that we did something wrong.
Right.
It wasn't until the actual Churban Beis Hamikdash that many people realized that, like we said before, that people realized that, oh my gosh, this really shouldn't be happening. Oy vey, it's happening. Let's do something about it now. So, it's loy eis laharbes betfila necessarily, because
Right.
it's not. We're not davening alcohol. It's not obviously davening is always good, but in a sense, you look in Echad, there's a few psukim that mention that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't even want our tefillas.
Right.
Sakaisi ba'analach ma'avar tefillah. Hashem is blocking out the tefillas.
So then you have to cry.
I tell you, Gavaldi Gavar. So that's what you have to do.
You
exactly.
have to cry, even if you have nothing behind it. Shari Demois, learn an olive ever.
Exactly.
So you have to use that, abuse the Shari Demois that Hashem gave you.
Yeah.
You should cry, even if you can't. Yeah, you're a man, you're tough. You still find it in yourself to cry about it.
Right. And that's really what Avelus is in a certain
Yeah.
life.
So there you go.
So the two psukim in Echa, I want to show you the two psukim in Echa of the Gemara, and I'm going to show you what it says in the Gemara. The Gemara says that if they would have davened, that a person who davens a seeking properly every day, nothing bad could happen to him. So for the kasha, how did it happen that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed?
Right.
If everybody davened a seeking. So you tell me, they didn't daven a seeking, they woke up late because they were up the whole night learning, so they weren't worried about the consequences of their actions. Let me just get a chumash, so we could get an echa situation over here. Oh, this should be good. There are two psukim that talk about the tefillah. See if we can find it. Here we go. Things in the second, at the end of the first parak. Yeah. It's a different type of tefillah. You're not really asking for something. You're so bizarre from what happened that you just connect to Hashem.
Right.
That's my understanding over here.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Here, Pasuk Mem Daled in Per Gimel. Sakoisa be'onon loch me'avor tefillah. What does that mean? Chotzatz et ha'af lias mechitza be'nochu be'neinu v'tzedafnu boy. Kosh Baruch Hu put up a mechitza, so to speak, between Kosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. So Rebbeinu Eibishter says, and let's see the Tosis over there. Tosis and Brachas, he says some of his base. Kol Hashem chul l'tfil ein nizik. V'im toimar v'alei kol olam sem chul l'tfil l'may rabusei. The Rav Bruna delay pasach chucham mipul. Maybe Yeshleim adachik kol sem chul l'tfil k'vasikin shekar krishma kadunet v'lachanetz. So Gemara says that there was somebody who they said about him that he was a great tzaddik. Because they also great about him because he was samach l'tfila, and he was samach l'tfila, and he was mamish happy from the mitzvah the whole day. So the question is, what was so good about that? Right. That's what Tesha says. So Tesha says, call samach l'tfila kvasikin. Right. So pshat is that they say that the basic pshat is that it's very hard to be mechavan mamish the exact second, and he knew how to be mechavan the exact second. Dr. Rebbeinu Eibishter, it's a very powerful part. He says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it cloudy. It's a kaisi ba'anan lach me'avar tefillah. So it was cloudy. They couldn't be mechavan the exact second they needed for this. And Mamela, Hashem was able to pass that. And then there was another pasuk also. Let's see if I can find it. You go to the Psukim here, you'll see very stark. Even in the beginning of Yeshaya, that we learned on Shabbos, also very, very stark over there that Hashem does not want our tefillas, Hashem does not want our karbonos. Hashem is not interested. It's almost like Hashem is showing a certain stubbornness. Right. Imagine getting into a fight with somebody and you're ready and the other person's not. So you gotta just, try and try and try and try and try. Maybe. There was another pasuk, I just don't remember which one it was. Let's see the Gemara over there with the Shari Demois, that Gemara that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know where it is?
I don't.
How do you know this is your thing?
Famous song.
Yeah, Vada.
Is it true? You have to find it in the Gemara.
Yeah. Miyom shachor beis hamikdash brachas lamed beis and beis. Nina lu shari tefila. This is the pasuk I was looking for. Nina lu shari tefila shenamar gam ki ezak. Even when I scream out vashaveya sosam tefilasi, when tefillah is closed up. Va'afal pisha shari tefila ninalu. Shari dim aloinin alo shenamar shima tefilasi Hashem v'shavasi azina al demasi al techrash. Rova lo gozar tanisa b'yom de'iba. Rova will not be gozer a tainus on a cloudy day. Mishum shenamar sakoisa b'onon loch mavar tefillah. Because the pasuk says that when it was cloudy, then the tefillahs can't go up. I don't know if this means literally, but in the basic sense it is. So where's that other pasuk? Gam ki ezek vashavei sosam tefilasi. It's in Parag Gimel. It's probably the beginning of Parag Gimel. As these two psukim are pretty stark, saying that it's not the tefillah day.
Right. On a cloudy day.
Gam ki ezek vashavei sosam tefilasi. Pasuk ches. Sosam chalonis harakia befoneha. The mukemis with the tefillas are oila, Kadosh Baruch Hu close it up. But as we've been talking a lot this summer, we spoke about Menashe. Right? You listen to the Menashe.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what was the Gemara say? That Kadosh Baruch Hu was choisech hatirim mitachas kisei hakoved. Right? And we said that the Gemara P'tachim says that really any tshuva has to come through that way.
Right.
And there's no other, and because in the regular mahalach of the world, it shouldn't exist. Right? So we need to just literally just bang down the doors, and that's what it sounds like. Fine. So that's what so that's what we're saying over here also. So then there's noch a Gemara. The Gemara also says that it's an interesting thing. Yeah. Why is it by Hasidim l'mashal?
Yeah.
They sit together and they fabring and they drink and they sing and it's nice. Mazos. What's the idea? Yeah. Pshat is because when you sit together having a good time, you get to know the other person, and you get to appreciate the other person's miles. Yeah. And part of the avodah of working on yourself and getting to know other people is by extending yourself and by and getting to know them. Right. So it's really a Gemara. It comes from a Gemara. There's two Gemaras I'll show you. There's the story comes to mind, a cute story. Nothing seen in the mirror. So he was very into everybody should know everybody. They say that Reb Chaim Krauswitz used to go visit him. Reb Chaim Krauswitz was much older than him. He was a big Ilui. So they asked him, what's pshat? He says, Bavli and Yerushalmi by heart. So he doesn't speak to Lamdin, but you're going to go visit him. You're 25 years older than him. If I was husband with him. Yeah. So he says, listen, he's a Rosh Hashiva that knows 6,000 names of his Talmidim by heart. That's a Sachi Gresef and Bavli and Yerushalmi. And someone asked him, doesn't see if it's true, that he knows all 6,000 Talmidim's names by heart. So he said, nobody wishes he did. But Libi Omerli, that was his anivas. Because I had an uncle who was very close. I had an uncle who was very close to him when he was in the mirror for many years. Many years later, he went to the mirror dinner. He decided to pop in and introduce himself to Nasan Tzvi. He starts introducing himself. Before he even had a chance to finish it up, Nasan Tzvi already remembered everything about him. Yeah. Asked him all the questions that, how's your wife, how's your kids? If he doesn't know him, Mechates, your wife, Mechates, your kids, how's his job, where is he learning, right? All these things, right? Obviously, he was holding cup with that. He's talking to all the people. Right? So there's two Gemaras I'll show you. One is on a personal level. A person feels much better after he eats and he drinks.
Yes, that's true.
I think everybody knows that. And my grandfather calls it the bagel and lox theory. A kid's grumpy, he can eat, he can feel much better. I'm telling you, this is mamish. It's a segula. It's a segula like no other.
Body
yeah. Omer Rava, Omer Bavdimi de Menchefa, Kaidem Sheichel Adam Yishte, Yeshte Shnei Levavis. La'achar Sheichel V'Sheitz Ein Le'ela Levachas. Shenamar Ish Novav Yilavev, Iksiv Nevuv Luchais, Metagamina Chalil Luchin. Afilu Liboy Otum Kavesula, Yayin Mefachkai, Shenamar Vatirish Yineviv Psulev. By eating and drinking, it lifts a person up to the point where a person is able to see things in a better light. Yeah. And I think that's what the Gemara is saying over here. So, oilei labonim that there were sholchum el shagolim el shulchan avim, they don't have access to this anymore. Right. So they're missing. There's a big chisaron when they're not by the shulchan avim. Right. What does it say by the Sudas HaMafsekas? It says that you should eat it ben taner v'kirayim. Right. Dafka, don't eat it by the table, because we have to show that we had goals from the table. But really, let's understand with a whole nother Gemara. The Gemara says that one of the things that's marichin lo yomav v'shnoisav shel adam, one of the things that gives a person richas yomim is hamarach al shulchanai. Somebody spends a long time by his table.
What is that?
Mazais, a long time by the table. So let's see. There's two Gemaras. Where do we have? We need.
How would you touch up hamarach al shulchanai? So I'm just plain, just a simple. A guy is sitting there for a long time. Well, what do you mean by asik? What do you mean by that? What? By marach al shulchan.
So let's see what the Gemara says.
Okay.
Let's see Gemara. So the Gemara says that. It's the Gemara on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. The Gemara says like this: Hamarach al shulchanai. Why is that a person gets a riches yomim? Dilma asi anya v'yohevle. Maybe a poor person will come to the Suda and I'll be able to give him. The chsiv hamizbeach eitz sholish amas gavoya. So the mizbeach was made out of wood and was 3 amas high. Uksive yadaber elaiza shulchan shel lifnei Hashem. Then the pasuk continues and says that this is the shulchan that's lifnei Hashem. Pasach b'mizbeach v'sayim b'shulchan. One pasuk you start talking to me about the mizbeach, then you start telling me about the shulchan. Make up your mind what are you talking about. Rabbi Yechon Rabbi Loza Amrit Habayu calls man shebeis hamikdash kayom mizbeach mechaper al Yisrael. Ve'achshav shulchanoi shel odom mechaper olav. So there's a very subtle sensitivity, edelkeit in this Gemara, I think. Dilma asi anya v'yaravle. Yeah? So, if a poor person knocks on your door, it's freezing cold at night, you invite him in, you give him a check, whatever it is, and you give him a hot tea, you give him a hot cocoa, you give him something, you give him a coffee, make him feel good, give him a Danish, you can leave. So what that's not marach al shulchanai, that's just bringing somebody into your house. Fine. What's marach al shulchanai that when the ani comes, you should still be sitting by the table?
Yeah.
So number one, if a guy knocks on the door, mechatesi, he's going to come for a meal. Right? Mechatesi, a guy comes who knocks on the door that's going to come for the meal, that you're going to be holding by the meal. Right. But the pshat is, if you're always holding by the meal, you're never going to make him feel even a mashu uncomfortable by not showing up to the Suda. Come, grab it. The best feeling when you come to Suda, it's always awkward to ask someone to come to a Suda, but the best type of balabas is when you come into a guy's Suda, he says, oh, come, pull up a chair, not my bankel, right?
Yeah.
Get my bankel. That's the best way. But you're minimizing that little tiny bit of awkwardness, you're taking it away because you don't have to ask.
He has to be a good guest.
No, so I'm telling you not. This has nothing to do with the guest. This has to do with the balabas. But I want to tell you that's good for the chisaron. That was good for the problem over here. We said before, what's the difference if this one comes, that one comes?
Right.
Your house should be open. It should be pasuch levacha, right? The Vartan that told us, from the Talmud of Baal Shem Tov, the Gemara says that the Gedei Lachnasorchem Mekabels Pnei Shechina. Lachnasorchem is greater than Mekabel Shechina. Everyone's trying to figure out what this means. Everyone has Torah on this. It's a famous word. He said that the pshat is because, the kat mesapri lashon hara, people who speak lashon hara, they're not mekabel pnei shechina. Right. So Zak there, you still mechuyev to, if they knock on your door and ask for a meal, you still got to give them a meal.
That's true.
So gedei lahachnasas archem mekabel pnei shechina. Even the mesapri lashon hara, even if the people are going to be talking lashon hara by the table, you should try to do what you can to stop them, right? But even them, they're going to come to your meal. You should still let them come to your meal.
Yeah, just let them sit.
Let them there. So that's the pshat and why it's gedol lachanasercha mekabels pnei shechina, because these are the katzas of lashon hara, and we have to.
Sweet. This is Masikas right here.
This is good, yeah. Akapanim. So to put all the gemaras together, we have one more gemara to say, but basically the story is like this: that shulchan shel adam is mechaper for him, right?
Right. So
shulchan shel adam is mechaper only if he's inviting people. Telling you, oh, I don't like you, you can't come. Yeah. Right. So these are words Maral says and others say also, that the pshat is that a person could look at the story in the Gemara and say, 1 second, he was friends with Kamsa, and he was enemies with Bar Kamsa. So I'm not entitled to have enemies. I have a friend. I'm a kind of it's not so bad. Right? Zok the Maral, no. And Zok the others also, no. It's not, pshat is that if you're very cliquey, I could be only friends with Yena. I can't be friends with this one. I could only be friends with that one. I can't be friends with that one. Right? That's going to be big sinas chinam situations.
Right.
And the nakuda isn't so much that the nakuda really is, like the Gemara is going to say later. There's one line that's mamish a terrible, that like, is the makbeh patish of the whole Gemara the Churban. It says, Tanya Omer Belozar. This is Nun Zayin Amar Aleph. Look at the power of embarrassment. Kamsa was a meiser, he was no good nick.
Right.
But because of him, the Beis HaMikdash got destroyed. It was Nikra al Shemai the Churban Beis HaMikdash, because Hakadosh Baruch Hu felt that busha that he went through, that he was willing to destroy the Beis HaMikdash for that. Right. So when you have a chance to bring somebody into your house, when you have a chance to extend yourself to another person, go and do that, right? So the Gemara says, "Ooh, I found a beard. This doesn't belong to me. But return it where it came from." Anyway, so that's a pshat in the inviting the oni. And there's just one more Gemara I want to tell too, and that would be in Sanhedrin. That's near where we're learning.
Yeah.
In the camp in the summer, as follows. It's on the bottom of Kuf Gimel on the base. Yeah. Am Rabbi Yechanan, Mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, Gedele Legima, Sheher Chika Shnei Mishpachos MiYisrael. Legima is so great that it distanced 2 families from Klal Yisrael. What's legima means? Like Rashi, achila shamachilim orchim, the food that we give to orchim to eat. Yeah. When you also like we're talking from the Gemara Bavas over there. When you give somebody to eat, you make him feel like a mensch.
Or you make him feel like
he has a leif echad now. He can think straight, And I was going to say that the pshat is that in the Tosefta he was unsure should he go like Rasham. So instead of throwing everything away from the table, you'll actually sit down and eat it, and you'll be able to decide which team you want to be on.
Yeah.
So a person who's a mensch once he eats, he's able to function like a normal person. Shenemar al dvar shalakid me'eschem belechem u'b'mayim. It was marchik to mishpachos from Israel. Who were they? The Ammon and the Moabs. Because lafisha lekid me'Yisrael belechem u'b'mayim nichtav shalei yavoy b'kal. They're not allowed into the kahal. They're not allowed into Klal Yisrael. They could have said, we always say, I'm minding my own business. What's the difference? I have to invite every schlepper to my house.
Yeah, valid.
All right. We know that people don't invite all the schleppers to the house. So you have to be that one. He'll go to him. Right? So it distances the close ones and it's makar of the ones that are distant. And it makes a Kodesh Baruch Hu malam ayin min harishoyim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't look at the rishos of the rishoyim. And there's a Shras Hashchina on the Nevi Habal. Shegagase oila zodain, and the Shugaga becomes zodain. So let's see. The Gemara is going to go through this whole thing. So malemis einayim min harishoyim, malemis me'enei ha'makom shel hab b'rishah l'sham l'kadar kerelo isik l'enrei b'maisa.
Yeah. You
want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to not look at your averos that you do line chesed. Make a lot of parties, invite a lot of people, be very welcoming, be very, very warm. Malemes einayim min harishoyim.
He's giving an idea now? Okay.
So, marchekes es hakrevim me'amin u'moyav. Krevim liYisrael. They're relatives of Klal Yisrael shabo me'loit. Ben achi Avram v'richkon ha'makom shlo yavoyu b'kal. Lashon acher krevim mamish. Krevim mamish lekal ha'memar. The Midian b'bnei Keturah hayu Avram krevim hayu b'nei Midian liYisrael. Yosem yamin u'moyav. Fine. U'mekareves es rechoikim miYisrael. The Omer Rabbi Yochanan, and it's Makar v'choikim from Yisrael, because Rabbi Yochanan said, "B'schar karena levayoch alechem, zochu b'nei bono vayesh v'lishkas hagozes." Because he invited them, he invited him in. Yisrael invited him in to eat some bread.
Right. Invited
Moshe in. So because of that, his children would sit in the Sanhedrin.
Right.
Mimishpacha Seifrim. And that's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu and his children. And then the last thing is Uksiv Hasam b'nei Keni Chayse Moshe Olamir Atmar V'spnei Hud Beihud Shabenegev Arod V'elech V'eshav Samay Umelemes Einayim in Arasham Mimicha Umashra Shechina Al Nebei Habal Mechaveri Shal Idoi Hanavi. What's the story with Micha? Damrin and Le'el Hinichuloi Shapita Mitzir Loi V'drachim. So the Gemara asks the question over here: how come Micha is not considered one of the people that doesn't have a chiluk in El Mabah?
Right.
So the Gemara answers. The Gemara says that although Micha was a bad person, he was a tremendous Avodah Zarah, but because he always made sure that nobody would go hungry, he's thing, right? The Gemara here in getting Kal Savua, right?
Yeah.
What was so great about Kal Savua? Kal Savua, Pshat is the Gemara says, why was he called Kal Savua? The satisfied dog. Well, it's not such a nice thing to call somebody. Right. But Pshat is that anybody that knew him was never hungry. What was so gavaldic? Why is everybody running after a child of care steer?
Right.
I know people.
He would give. Right.
I know people that had Yeshua steer. It's not a joke. Even the people that don't buy into the Maisalach. But the Pshat is the Chesed was on Hashir, and there was no Kpedus on people, and it was just everybody, and it was Pita Mitsuyu L'chol Ovri Derech.
Like they would say in this generation, non-judgmental.
Right.
The epitome of it. Yeah,
but it wasn't just non-judgmental. It was serving you, but quite malachim in that way.
Right.
Inviting and welcoming and warm and giving and giving and more and just non-stop wanting to give.
Yeah.
That's why people see Yeshua stay. That's why people feel connected over there. Mm-hmm. So that's a pshat and why they were also Micha. That's the story with Micha.
Okay.
Oh, let's see the Gemara. The Gemara's on over here. Where is it? 1 second. Mipnei ma lemonu esmicha b'pnei shapita mitzui l'arvedrachim. Shenamar kol over v'shovel alavim v'over b'yam tzar v'hiku b'yam galim. Amar b'yechem z'pisa shamicha. And the Gemara is saying all kinds of terrible things that Micha did. That the smoke of his Avodah Zarah would go up together with the smoke of the Karbonis and would mix together. You know, that the tremendous zilzal in the Mizbeach. V'afal pikein, Amar len HaKadosh Baruch Hu inichu loi shapita mitzui l'arvedrachim. And that's why Pelegish Begiva got destroyed, because they did not give. They were not welcoming to the people. And the Gemara goes on that was the story with Yonasan, that Yonasan, if he would have given food to David when David was running away,
right,
that he didn't have to ask for lechem upon him and whatever, then he would have saved Never Kahanim. And the Gemara goes weiter and weiter. The point is like this. So not going to where does Ammon and Moav coming over here? Obviously, Moav, they're not our friends, right? David HaMelech comes from Moav, right? And Doeg, and Doeg made issues because he said that they can't be part of Klal Yisrael. And David HaMelech was, the drasha was Amayni v'le Amaynis, Me'aviv l'Me'avis. He was from Me'avis. He was allowed to be part of Klal Yisrael, right? The Gemara Yevamah says,
I don't understand. Rus was a Yeris. Like, what's the problem?
No, because from Moav, you're not allowed to accept Gerim from Moav.
Oh, and they accepted Rus.
So they accepted Rus, so when Chetesi allowed to accept her.
Right.
Yeah. So, there's a pasuk here in Echa that the Gemara Yevamah's darshans that I think says something very interesting. Yodoi paras tzar al kol machmadeho kiras hagoyim bo mikdasha asher tivisa lo yavoy b'kaholoch. Yodoi paras tzar, that's Aminu Moav, al kol machmadeho. They stretched out their hand on kol machmadeho sifrei Torahs shenemar behem hanechmodim izahav hakol nifnu lovus kesef izav ve'im nifnu al sifrei Torahs kadei l'sar from fisha kos bem lo yavoy amoni b'kal Hashem asher tivisa lo yavoy b'kalach ilo Aminu Moav. When the Goyim destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, Ammon and Moav ran in to rip up and destroy the Sefer Torah. They could have went to take all the Kesef Zahav, but they didn't. Why? Because they want to uproot the pasuk that says, "Lo Yovay Amayni Mayavi B'Kal Hashem." Now, why are they so upset? Why is it that Lo Yovay Amayni Mayavi B'Kal Hashem? Mipnei Shleikidnu Lechem Umayim. It's so simple, and that's why they go and destroy the Torah. If they would have given lechem umayim, then they would be allowed to become. They're allowed to join the call. The chasam why they can't come into the calls because they did not extend themselves with lechem umayim. It's for me only. I don't share. I don't give it my nash to other kids in this class.
Yeah.
Exclusive, only for you, not for anybody else.
Right.
That's a huge chisaron.
Right.
So when he throws that bar kamsa, why do you stare so much? You're not his friend. Why did he come? Why did he come to the party? Because he thought he was being mefaisim.
Right.
So the question was, why did he stick around and fight with him? Because that's the teva. He's very embarrassed. He was very embarrassed. He's mevashim. That's what the Gemara says was the busha.
Right.
It was the busha that did it. And the chacham weren't meicha. So why weren't the chacham meicha? It's in many pshatim. But one of them is because that if the Maharsha says as a davar pashut that they wouldn't listen to him anyway, so what's the point? The Chassam Sofer says that the Chachamim were done the Baal Hasud l'kav schus. So here the Chassam Sofer says a murder the Gevart. The Chassam Sofer says, are you allowed to hate a Yid? No. Are you allowed to hate an over Avera? Somebody who does Averis? If you see somebody doing a dvar erva, you're allowed to hate him for doing an avera. So the Chassam Sofer says that the chachamim that weren't meicha,
you're allowed or you have to.
You have to hate the. Oh, okay. So talk to him. We'll finish up.
Hello. Okay. I'm by Stratton. Okay.
So he says like the Chassam Sofer, that they were dan, that the Chachamim were dan this person l'kav schus. They were dan the Baal Suda l'kav schus. That the reason why he hates Bar Kamsa is not because he blows his nose too loud in shul.
Right.
As a frume, Bar Kamsa did an avera, and we have a problem with him because he's an avarian.
Right.
And so we're down l'kav schus. Maybe he has a right to hate him. But you see what happens when you down somebody l'kav schus for hating another yid.
Right.
That's what was going on the Chum Beis Hamikdash. Just don't be such a lamdan to be down l'kav schus.
Right.
If you see somebody hating somebody, don't be down l'kav schus. That he has a right to hate him. Pashtus, he doesn't. Right?
Right. If someone has a question,
yeah.
If someone's torn between two things,
right,
and he has to make a decision,
yeah,
how does someone come to a conclusion? Like going back to
the original question,
all the way back, yeah.
So you're asking the wrong person.
I'm not asking you a person. I'm asking like Bichlal.
Right.
I don't know.
So I have a very hard time answering this question because it's not something that I struggle with. It's not something I have an issue with. I know a lot of people that do. So it's very hard for me to try to explain to them that you
just do whichever one you want.
Like, just pick one and run. Yeah.
So pick one and run. But what if like the stakes are very, very high? Like,
so you have to think about it. So then don't ask me. But I think that this is. Let's just finish up this last verse of Amin and Mayav. I think it's a very stark nakuda. That why are they so upset? Why are Amin and Mayav so upset at Hashem?
Yeah.
Because Hashem says you can't become part of Klal Yisrael.
Right.
Why can't they be part of Klal Yisrael? Because they didn't give Klal Yisrael to eat. Why? Because they said, well, why should I waste my food on these poor Jews? Right? So the whole sinner that we have towards them and their sinner that they have towards Hashem is ulkosh lekim b'lechem b'mayim. Right. So give the Jew, give him a Danish. Like, what are you so? Yeah. Don't get so fahakt with it,
Give him a Danish.
All right. So just one quick interesting because the Gemara says that Marach HaShulchan is Marach Yamim. What does it mean to be Marach Yamim? Yeah. So I saw. We didn't even get to this Gemara about Rameir. We'll save it for later, maybe. Save it for a different time. Yeah. So what does it mean that a person is Marach Yamim? So I saw. I was looking into it a little bit, and I saw that there's a famous verse in Sasemes, the friend Imre Yames, that when the Sasemes is nifter, so he said he got it to give a husband to his father, and he said the Tatat got Riches Yamim. And Sasemes was in his 50s when he passed away. He said that got Riches Yamim. So he said every single day he lived to the max.
That's the way to do it.
That's Yamim. So Riches Yamim. So Marichal Yamav Ushnoisav is the pshat that he'll live a very, very full life. Or it's more than just a full life. The pshat is really that the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world, he'll be able to get a very, very big connection to that. Meaning that he'll have a certain siyata d'shmaya. And I saw a pshat that what it means is the Merichel Em Shnai says the pshat is that his children
will also.
He'll have hatzlacha with parnasa and have hatzlacha with his children. Because a person's Arichas Yam is really his children. A person in this case is his children.
All right. That's the hemshach.
Yeah, that's the hemshach, yeah. I think it's good. We went long.